Today's podcast is sponsored by Antler Cold Brew Coffee. What makes this stuff special? In a word, caffeine. Numerous studies have shown that having caffeine before a workout can improve a host of things, including endurance, focus, power, and fat burning. This is old news, but in recent years, other studies have even shown that ingesting caffeine the way nature intended in coffee is more effective than with pharmaceutical refined caffeine. This is attributed to the synergies that caffeine and all the antioxidants in coffee have when they work together. I've linked some of these studies in the show notes on my site. So enough of the science behind this stuff, let me tell you about it on a more practical level. First, you simply smash a shot of cold brew coffee concentrate pre-workout in your face and get a caffeine buzz that rivals some of the most hardcore pre-workout supplements out there. Caffeine is completely legal in all sports, and this product is ideal for guys who are looking to perform on a high level but want to keep their stacks natural and know what they are taking. We've been giving some samples that we'll be taking during this episode, so if we end up grappling in the studio when we should be discussing more important things, just bear with us as this is experimental. If you guys would like to make an order for some awesome Antler Cold Brew pre-workout or some of their other products, make your way over to their website at www.antlercoffee.co.za. If you use the code BIGL, you'll get a 10% discount on any order placed with them. So hurry on up, get over to www.antlercoffee.co.za and get 10% off any order.
The Big Al Podcast with your host, Al Bishop, unfiltered and uncut.
Welcome everyone. Today in studio I've got the Magic Man Don Madge with me. Thanks for coming through, bro. I know you guys have got a heavy time, you're training full time, so we really appreciate making some time out for us, and welcome to the show, man.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here, man.
Cool, awesome. Don, what I normally do is with the fighters, we kind of build like a profile. So obviously you started basically in Thailand.
I mean, I started fighting when I was in Cape Town when I was really young. I obviously started with Muay Thai. I mean, I've done martial arts like my whole life, really. Like, you know, the usual karate, judo stuff. But once I got a hold of Muay Thai, it kind of stuck with me. And then, like you said, I moved to Thailand. I lived there and competed on their local circuits. And, you know, one thing led to another.
Yeah, sure. But now, Thailand, you had a lot of accolades in Thailand. Hey? You had won like a couple of tournaments there. You were fighting for Tiger Muay Thai at a stage.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just like your usual, let's go for December.
Oh, no.
Had a little kick down.
Oh, no, I was proper in it. Like, I was one of the only, when I first got to Thailand, I was one of the only foreigners like in the entire camp. Like, no one spoke English. I kind of had to wing it. And I lived in like a room with a bunch of other Thai guys. We used to shower with a bucket. Like I did it as real as you can get. I used to fight for my money. And that if you didn't fight and you didn't win, then you don't get food. You know, then you don't eat. So I was fortunate enough to get a sponsorship from Tiger, but they actually saw me fight here in South Africa. I was fighting in Pretoria at like an underground event. It was for a K1 title. And after that, one of the guys approached me, the general manager. He approached me and he said, would you like to come to Thailand and represent our team? I was like, oh, yeah, of course I would. I've been to Thailand and I've lived the other way, and that sucked.
Sure.
So it would be nice to be a sponsored athlete and have like a place to stay and get good training without having to basically...
And not shower with a bucket.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. A little bit of like some home comfort.
No, for sure.
And English-speaking people.
And so how did that whole transition come about from Muay Thai into actually to the EFC?
I just come back from Thailand. And we kept trying to like find me fights and stuff, and it was just really difficult to get fights. Like I'd beaten most of the guys, and to get me a fight at the weight that I wanted especially was like really difficult. Like I fought from 70 kilograms to 80 kilograms. I just fought wherever I could, but to try and get fights from like 70 to 75 kilograms was almost impossible. So at the time, like EFC was just taking over. It was on like Super Sport. They had like their own channel.
Yeah. Sure.
So like everyone knew about it. Like EFC was the shit. And my coach was already training a guy who fought in the EFC already. So I don't know if you remember Paul Blanche.
Yes.
Like
yes,
first
yes,
guy.
yes.
Yeah, so he was training Paul, and Paul was in the EFC already, and because me and Paul trained in the same gym, like I used to help him with like his stand up. And then when we couldn't get any fights, like a year passed. I was here in South Africa for a year, and a year passed by, and I couldn't get any fights. And I was eventually like, well, let's get me an MMA fight then. And so I started training. I had done like jiu-jitsu and stuff before, but not like, it was more of a hobby because it was interesting. So I kind of just did that, and then once I took it seriously, then I trained for about 6 months, and then I had my first MMA fights, which I never had an amateur career at all as a...
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask, because you actually never really had an amateur career. So
No.
so your first MMA fight was basically from Thailand. You took almost, it was like a year in between, whatever, and that was it. Bang.
That's it.
Let's go fight.
Straight into it. Like it's the same with my Muay Thai career. Like I only fought like a couple times as an amateur.
Sure.
It was also the same thing. Like it was hard to get fights because I was quite a big. Like when I started fighting, I was quite a big kid. Like
Sure.
I was the same. I fought at the same weight that I am now. Obviously now I cut weight, but
Sure.
then I used to just walk around at that weight. So for me to fight guys as like a 16-year-old or whatever, to fight 16-year-olds that were my size was quite difficult.
Sure.
So like I've never really had an amateur career, so I've always been thrown in the deep end, and I prefer it. I think I've built my whole career around being a professional, so I don't really mind doing it like that, you know.
Sure. And I think there's actually like an entire generation in South African MMA that was kind of how it happened. You know what I mean? There
Yeah.
wasn't really an amateur scene or an amateur career to follow. You know, I've heard some pretty cool stories where guys were like Charlie Vaya, for example, said to me that you know, he was with FFM and kind of just doing like an open workout somewhere and holding pads, and the next day Richie was like, "Hey, there's a contract for you for the EFC." if you can.
Yeah, I'm sure there's loads of those stories out there.
Yeah, sure.
I think like also if you've committed so much of your life to fighting, like there has to be some sort of retribution. Like there has to be some sort of thing where you can say, okay, I can make a life out of this now, you know. And as even boxers, like unless you're in the top 5 in South Africa, like you're not going to make money until like you're fighting for some serious, or you're fighting for the right promotions. But in terms of Muay Thai and kickboxing, there's nothing.
Yeah,
like if you're a kickboxer in South Africa, like good luck trying to make a living off that. Like that's not going to happen. So that's exactly where I was. And for me to now go, after fighting professional for so long as a professional Thai boxer, for me to go in and do like amateur fights, and also all the guys knew me locally. Like they weren't going to give me amateur fights anyway, because they knew like I'd had 70 plus professional Muay Thai fights. So they knew like I wasn't going to come in there and tap guys, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. And what was fighting in Thailand like? Like, I mean, if anybody wants to see, there's a couple of clips of you fighting in Thailand in like on YouTube and stuff, and it's pretty cool to see, because it's like I think it tells quite an interesting story. You're definitely on your own, you know?
100%.
And it's just crazy, man. It just seems like just another world.
Well, that was like the biggest shock for me when I came into the EFC, was being treated as an athlete. Like in Thailand, you're not an athlete, it's dogfighting. Like it's straight up dogfighting, because if you don't want to fight, there's like 1,000 guys that will fight in your place, because they want money, they want food. Because Muay Thai is such a huge sport there, if you're a superstar there, it's like playing for the Springboks, you know, like people, they regard you as a superstar. But at the same time, you still live, like I went to go visit Boakao at his gym, and he lives on the premises. It's a pig farm, and he lives there, and he doesn't live like a superstar. Like if you have to look at him and look at Connor, and they're basically in the same sort of league in terms of their sports. If you had to look at how Connor lives and how Boakao lives, you'd be like, what the hell's going on here in the world? So when you take that into consideration, like Thailand's, it's dogfighting for sure.
Yeah, no, it seems crazy. It's even like Sanshai. Even if you see like he's not traveling all over the world doing seminars and stuff, but whenever he's back home in Thailand, you're like,
yeah,
that's where you live.
Yeah, well, that's why most of the guys, they try and get onto the international like shows like K1 Max and stuff. They're not K1 fighters, but the prize money that you get when you take it back to Thailand is just ridiculous. Yeah. But the problem is those guys have been with their managers since they were 6. So when they got tied into their contracts, it's like a 70-30 split. Like the managers take 70%, the fighter takes 30%. So they fight for $50,000 and they're taking $10,000 back home. You know, like it's just, that's just the way it is there, because it's not to them, it's not a sport. Like
it's a life, really.
You're fighting,
it's a full-time job.
100%. You're fighting.
Yeah, I know. It just seems like another world. Like it seems like there's a lot of things happening. There's like Lion Fight and you know, these sort of promotions that are coming through, which maybe will eventually change the game. But
definitely, I love seeing stuff like that. Man.
Yeah, so it's very crazy, and I mean, obviously, there's like a lot of room to grow, you know, for those guys. Do you think Muay Thai is the best form of stand-up for MMA?
Yes and no. I think if your Muay Thai training came from a westernized style, for MMA it's perfect. But if you traditional, that was the hardest part for me, like traditional Thai fighting, because that's the only way I learned.
Yes.
The dynamic aspects of movement and head movements and boxing and changing angles and stuff, it took a little bit of time to adapt. If you could see the way I fought my first Muay Thai fight.
This is why I asked, because
very flat, very let's stand and trade. Even when I fought Leon, actually, my first fight with Leon, I just planted my feet and banged. But then if you fast forward to when I fought Boyd, I was a lot more dynamic, light on my feet.
Sure. So my question in there, like, it was your first EFC fight seemed very Thai based, you know. It was very flat-footed, like you say, and then up to the point where you won the title, where we had seen the full MMA version of Don Madge. You won the title. You won against Costa.
Yeah.
You won the, what was it, a rear
naked choke? Yeah.
So we had seen this development already. So that's why I asked, do you think, like, obviously MMA requires so many disciplines if you really look at it, you know what I mean? There's the wrestling, there's a bit of judo, there's the jits, there's the boxing, there's Muay Thai, there's whatever else that you throw into the kickboxing aspect. So it's interesting. I'd like to ask you, because I think out of everybody in the EFC, you probably have the best outlook on that, coming from such a heavy traditional Thai style of fight.
For sure. And like the big thing was adapting to the size of the gloves, first of all, because the way you defend in a Thai fight, first of all, there's a few ways to defend. A lot of Thai fighters, they'll clinch up when guys start throwing hands. They'll clinch up and work knees. But for a guy like me that was quite new to MMA, to clinch up with a guy who wants to put me on my back, it's not like the best idea. You know, I was fortunate enough to fight two strikers. My first two fights, actually my first three fights, I fought three strikers in a row. But yeah, like I said, the adaptation to where my hands needed to be, head movement especially, because Thais traditionally don't move their head very much when you fight. You kind of keep guys at range, or you clinching. There's no middle range, boxing range. So that I had to adapt my style. Got in touch with a really good boxing coach. I'd boxed a little bit when I was small, but nothing to the extent of what I needed for a cage fight.
So at the time when your MMA journey began, it was with Mike. Were you with PFA? Or
yes.
Were you somewhere before?
No, I was with PFA.
PFA. So
at the time, it was called African Top Team. Okay. We had myself, Jadison, Ron Potts, Paul. Yeah. There was a few different guys in our team.
Sure. Okay. So PFA was obviously, well, African Top Team as it was at that time, was obviously your ground, and then you started to come through the light, and then obviously the saga started with Jadison. So what actually really happened? Just clear it up a little bit. Obviously, I mean, you know, there's always going to be speculation.
Yeah, 100%.
There's going to be so and so on. And I mean, that obviously we'll talk about that just now.
Man, I don't even know. Like I thought me and Jadison were always cool. I never really understood why he had so much animosity towards me. But so basically, I trained with a guy named Gregor Wichman, who he basically gave me a place to train. He held pads for me, got me fights and stuff. He was working as like a manager for me here in South Africa while I was fighting. Okay. then when I went against MMA, he contacted Mike from PFA, and the two joined and they created African Top Team. So at the time, everyone would train together, and the two coaches worked together and made everything work. Jadison was the head jiu-jitsu coach, Mike was the head MMA coach, Gregor was the head striking coach, which all worked perfectly. We had a really good thing going, but then obviously when money gets involved, Jadison was fighting for titles, guys wanted percentages, the two split. So I was at a point where my MMA career was taking off. I'd fought on a main card already. I had like one of the biggest wars. Yeah. And Gregor said, look, I'm out of it. Mike said, look, you can stay or you can go with Gregor. And I said, realistically, if I go with Gregor, my MMA career is over because you can't help me with the ground, etc. So I said, look, I'll stay with you guys. So and then I was with Mike for a long time, and him and Jadison had a fallout, and Jadison left. When Jadison left, the same thing happened. He expected me to go with him, but I said, look, I owe my career to Mike. Like he's the one that took me in. He helped me develop my overall game. You're just the coach that was there. Sure. You're just the coach. Like I can't just up and leave him. And also I knew the kind of like character Jadison was. Like I knew that one day he'd be at training, one day he wasn't at training. Like I would rock up there some mornings and we would be ready to train and the gym would be locked because he was supposed to be there to open up. Sure. And then like, okay, he was at Caprice the night before. Okay. So we'll just wait. We had to call Mike. Mike, come open the gym. We'll train on our own. So I knew that aspect. And I think because I didn't go with him, I was his like star student or whatever. Yeah. He got really upset with that. And I never had any issue with him. When he went to PE, I still went to go visit him and I rolled with him. And, I thought everything was cool. And then before our fight, he messaged me on Facebook and he was like, hey man, what's up? They offered me a fight with you. I hope you take it. It'll be cool. No bad feelings, whatever. And I was like, bro, I don't give a fuck. Like, it's a fight. Like, we can fight. It's cool. Like, that's sweet. Like, I have no issue with you. You don't have an issue with me. You say you don't have an issue with me. Let's do it. Then as soon as the fight was announced, then he's all like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking kill this guy. Like, whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll see. I've knocked you out plenty of times in training. I've knocked you out. Like, yeah, you've tapped me, whatever, but I've tapped you too. So let's not get it twisted. Sure. Then obviously the fight happened. I beat his ass, and then we were in the medical room, and he's all like, "Hey, buddy, no hard feelings. It's just business." And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever. I don't care. Like, I haven't cared since the beginning. I've never cared." Sure. And then he still talks shit. Like, he's still talking shit today, and I'm just like, "Come on, bro. Like, I knocked you out. You were out. Like." If the ref didn't stop me hitting you,
conversation's over.
Yeah, I was gonna kill you. Like, you know what I mean?
If this was real life, you were dead.
Yeah, you were dead in real life.
No, for sure. Because it was obviously like, from my side, it was like a story that was never really told properly. You know what I mean? Obviously, like props to the EFC, they took an opportunity for some marketing and it worked. You know?
Yeah, 100%. It was amazing.
So it was an interesting story to kind of just get an idea of what was actually really fueling the whole thing. Because, like, what I saw from Jadison, and as you were saying now, like, it starts to make a lot more sense. You know what I mean? Like, he was kind of maybe hoping to use you as a marketing tool for himself, kind of thing, you know?
100%.
So it's very much like a popped ego for Jadison.
Yeah, well, that's why I said, like, the whole leap build up to a fight. I said the only reason you're getting this fight is because of me. The only reason you're on the main card is because of me. Like, no one even fucking remembers you. Yeah, the only reason you're getting this fight is because you're gonna fight me.
Sure.
So
Sure. No, it is. Yeah, you know, like, obviously when you kind of see the Jadison's back, you're like,
yeah,
what is he doing? You know, like, where's he coming from?
Hasn't won a fight in like 3 years.
Sure. And then obviously moving forward, you had it was a rough little period, and then eventually the move came from PFA. So firstly, what motivated that leave, and how difficult was it to leave?
Oh,
I mean, you left Cape Town, you left your gym. I mean, you've said you and Mark were obviously reasonably close, or pretty close.
Well, look, like, I've been thinking about it ever since I fought Boyd. When I fought Boyd, I was already considering like making the move. Everyone around me was saying like, listen, bro, like you need more training partners, you need more this, you need more that. I was basically training like on my own. Like I would roll with the general clients, the guys that come and pay their fees. I'd roll with them. I'd join in the normal classes. I'd hit pads with Matt, who I still train with. We own a business together. But basically, like I was a boxer. I was just training boxing really, and I would roll with the general class. Whoever the hell was there and willing to roll, I'd be like, okay, well, let's do that. So that's where I was, and obviously, like I said before, like Mike, he brought me into, he got me the title. Like we did all the work that was necessary to get the title, and so I felt like a lot of loyalty. I'm a very loyal guy, so I've only ever been with one team. That was them, and now I'm with another team. So I'm a very loyal guy, and I found it really hard to leave, you know. Then after the loss to Leon for the third time, fuck that fucking guy. So after that loss, I was like, man, I need to change, like now. Like I need to change. So obviously I wanted to get straight back into the cage because I wanted to avenge that loss.
Sure.
So I took the fight with Fred Noman. He pulled out. I got Reggie, smashed Reggie, and then straight after that I got into talks with Richie. I messaged Richie and I said, listen, I need to change. What do I need to do? I'll come, whatever. So Richie was like, I mean, he's very, very open about it. He's like, hey, I'm here to help athletes if you're willing to add to the community and add to the team. Like, we'd love to have you. So when that happened, then I spoke to Mike about it. We met for a coffee, we chatted, and everything was cool, you know. The big issue that happened with me and Mike was I opened my own gym.
Okay.
And we went and we spoke to him about it, saying like, look, we're going to open up a gym, this, that. Long story short, like, obviously it's competition, but that was never like our intention was to compete with him. I'm thinking like, I'm 26 right now. I'm not going to fight forever. When I'm 35 years old, what am I going to have, you know?
Sure.
So starting a gym now while I'm young, 10 years from now, who knows what I have. So that's what I was thinking. And we were offered a really, really good opportunity. The guy came to us with basically a gym that was already built and said, here, you guys can step in, turnkey, there's a gym for you. So we're like, bro, like you can't take up that opportunity.
And that's such an, I mean, Richie has told me himself, he was just on the show, and that's such a big part of FFM is that they're encouraging guys to be realistic and to say you cannot fight forever.
100%.
You have to have another plan, and you have to educate yourself, and you have to look at other businesses. And it's quite, you know, well, ever since Richie said that to me, like I've been paying a little bit more attention to see who's doing what, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of you guys at FFM that are really doing that thing. And I think it's important. I mean, you have to have that plan. I mean, a gym is one step in the right direction.
100%.
I mean, it's not going to be the answer for everyone. I don't know.
Yeah.
But all respect to Mike, I think a great coach should be encouraging that. You know what I mean? You shouldn't be seeing it as competition.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I understand it's a tough industry, it's a tough market. There's always going to be more and more gyms as we go forward. You know what I mean? But you have to learn to adapt to that.
Exactly.
And make the best of the situation.
And
you know?
at the end of the day, like, I have no resentment towards Mike. Like, I've put that all behind me. I've chatted to him, and we're cool. You know, like, obviously it was a shitty little patch, like for a year that was really bad. But we're cool now, and I have no issues with him at all. The thing that I just never understood is that if for instance, like, the more things that you have competing, the better your product has to be, right? Exactly. Like, there's 1,000 restaurants in like one small area, but you eat at the certain place because it's really good. Sure. So whether we open a gym next door to you or 20 kilometers away from you, it shouldn't really matter, because if your product is good enough, you shouldn't worry about it. Yeah,
it's exactly like that. I can actually tell you a little bit like you say restaurants. So I own a business where on a road where it's just restaurants and bars, you know what I mean? But we're still surviving, we're still growing, you know what I mean? So in actual fact, what I've seen over the years, what actually happens is it brings more people to that area, so you've got an opportunity. So your competition opening up next to you actually opens up an opportunity
100%.
for you. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, that's business sides, you know.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's like, I mean,
you got to have business, man. You
Exactly.
got to have it. You know, you can't. I don't think. Well, we know obviously in any sport, not just fighting, you cannot rely on that for your entire life.
No.
Because things happen. You know
Exactly.
what I mean? And eventually you have to stop fighting.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah. I
like
think
that's
it's a good move.
just realistic, you know, like and I understand like people being afraid of like competition or feeling like they're being betrayed or whatever, but that was never the intention, and I was just doing what's best for me at that
Sure.
that particular time.
And then how easy was it to arrive at FFM? What was it like? Because I mean, I know like I've changed the gym, but I mean I'm not a professional fighter. You know, the first day you're like sheepish, you're like,
Yeah.
how's it, man? How's it going? Introducing yourself, you know, it's
The cool thing with FFM and the team is that everyone's exactly who they are.
sure.
So you walk in and guys are exactly who they are. They know who they are. They're all men. They know who they are as individuals. So no one pretends. So I felt very comfortable. I walked in, and obviously like your first week or whatever, there guys are trying to gun for you,
Sure.
but that's cool. Like that's how I like it. You know, the harder they push me, the better I'm gonna get. So, the transition into FM was perfect. Richie and Chef were like very, very accommodating, very, very helpful. They still are. I feel completely at home.
Yeah, sure. And I think it's like you say, obviously you guys are gunning for you. It's a nice indication for yourself, because realistically it's the biggest gym in Africa,
Yeah.
and these are some of the best athletes in Africa, so you also get to place yourself, you know, like you get a good look at exactly where you are, which I think is
100%.
quite cool. You mentioned Leon just now. We don't have to talk about Leon too much, but do you think the Don Madge as it is today against Leon today is a completely different fight?
Yeah, it's a completely different fight, 100%. Yeah, I'm a completely different fighter, and I think everyone can see it in my last 2 fights since joining FFM. Like I'm a completely different fighter. I've got a whole new skill set, and the biggest thing for me, and this is just being honest, like was a confidence thing. So when I went into our 3rd fight, I was not confident in my ability to win, just purely because of, not because of my skills, but because of I hadn't had the right sparring, I hadn't had the right grappling, I haven't had the right, I just didn't have, my conditioning was on point, my conditioning is always on point, but when you're going up against a guy who comes from a big team like CIT,
Sure.
he's fighting with some of the best guys in the division, in the organization. So going into the fight, you start having these doubts, but being with FFM, you don't have any of those doubts, because if you're on those black mats and you're with DeMart, Boyd, Martin, you got savages around you all the time.
Sure.
So every single doubt that you have will be answered there on those mats, and if you are man enough to accept them and face them, you will like overcome them.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's obviously with the way I saw the whole thing, for example, like Soulja Boy leaving, the way I saw it is that it's exactly like you said, he was kind of seeking another level of sparring partner, you know what I mean? Obviously there's a bit more to it, but that's the first thing that came to my mind, you know.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what you said, like you're training with the best of the best, you know what I mean, which is going to make you only better. You know, you can't, like me and you can go roll, but I'm only going to offer you so much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's not really going to benefit you, it's going to benefit me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean, like I'm going to learn a lot more, and you kind of just going to be like, well, cool.
100%. Well, that's what I felt the most when I was in Cape Town. Like everyone that I was rolling with, they were loving it because obviously I was a lot better, and I
Sure.
was giving them a lot more insight than they were giving me.
Sure.
And being the only like actual professional that was in that team at that time, like I needed a little bit more than that, you
No,
know.
100%.
And like now, like I feel like I can beat any man on the planet right now. Like if you put them in front of me today, I'll beat them.
Yeah, 100%. And I think obviously the whole MMA community was glued to the TV to see the resurgence of Don Madge, you know, the FFM version of Don Madge. And straight away, it was evident. Like, okay, the title's here. It has to happen. Like you came out the gates firing. You seemed to have like a new energy. Obviously, you're always going to have a new skill set coming from that gym, and like this massive resurgence,
100%.
And it's also like there's a new air of. I remember I can't remember which fight it was. Like, I remember you coming out like very pumped up, and like very, like I'm like, stop wasting energy, just calm down, you know what I mean? And it seemed like you'd kind of incorporated a mix of both, enough relaxed energy and enough excited energy, and there was an air of confidence about you, and it seems to be carrying forward now.
Yeah,
that's why I asked about the Leon fight, because I think everyone also forgets just how young you were, and where you were at your career. Like, I know no one really wants to see a fourth fight.
No.
I think in this case we can maybe down the line have a look at it.
Look, I've answered this question a lot because everyone's like, "Oh, you're gonna do a fourth fight?"
Yeah.
Look, even if we take the fourth fight and I knock him out in 10 seconds, he's 3-1 up.
Sure.
For me, I still lose.
Yeah.
So I still lose. I can beat him into a bloody mess and leave him retired. He'll never fight again. But I'm still 3-1 down. So for me, it's not an attractive offer at all. But yeah, I mean, I also think like Leon's coming to the end of his career now. He's starting to take a lot more damage than he used to. Starting to see him get rocked a bit more. So I think, that fight is always just going to be a fantasy fight, I think.
Yeah, sure. Maybe we can settle it in a gym somewhere behind.
Maybe if he comes to FFM.
We'll have to meet in the middle.
Yeah.
So, talking about like that sort of thing, obviously there was the Boyd fight, which was a draw. Just a simple question: has that been settled? Because I don't know if you guys are ever really going to fight again. So.
No. Look, me and Boyd, we spar like almost every single session. He gets the better of me. I get the better of him.
So it's still a draw.
Yeah, no, it's a draw. Look, I think the coolest thing about our fight is that it brought out the best in him and it brought out the best in me.
Sure.
He's never really fought a guy that stood and just traded with him because everyone's so dangerous. Everyone's so afraid of his dangerous strikes. And I had the same thing. The only guy that stood with me was Leon, and it was nice to bring out the best in our games.
Sure.
And we do the same thing when we spar. Like, we bring out the better side. He's so talented. Like, he's a really, really tricky fighter, and
he's incredible to watch at times.
He's gifted. Like, he's a gifted fighter, and being able to have that fight, inverted commas fight, every day is awesome.
Yeah, 100%. There's another thing I want to work towards. So it's when I sat with Rory Diesel, you're like his masterpiece. He's like, this is how heavy Don is. This is where we get him. Yeah. So what are you walking around at now?
Now I'm about 4.5 weeks out, so I'm sitting at about 82, 81. Yeah, I've got
that, Khabib.
Yeah, I've got my process down pretty well. Like, I'll be in the last week. I'll do the last 7 kilos. Sometimes it's a bit like for my Jadison fight, I did the last 10 kilos in a week. But like like I said, I got my process. Like, I know exactly where I need to be when and what I need to wake up on, what I need to go to bed at. And my body responds really, really well to a change in diet. Like, I drop weight pretty quickly, and I put it on just as quick. So I'll weigh in at 69. I'll be 81 on the night for sure.
It's incredible. Jeez. That's what Rory was saying to me. And it was the funniest thing about you, when you think about those numbers that you're cutting water and so on, and then putting a lot back on, is that like weighing days, you don't wear that. You don't look like somebody who's like severely dehydrated and like who's suffered a cut. You look healthy, you look strong, and 24 hours later you're 11 kilos heavier.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite something. I think I used to have to cut a little bit of weight for Muay Thai, but not too much. But I think just it's like guys who have been wrestling their whole lives. Sure. They just used to cutting weight, and I think I'm also somewhere. I've had terrible cuts. Like, when I fought Costa, that was easily the worst cut I've ever had in my life. I had to drop 13 kilos 2 days, which was an absolute nightmare. But
sounds like a nightmare.
I mean, like, weight cutting is all mental. It's not really like your body will always lose the weight. You're 70% water, so like whatever you weigh right now, drop that by 70%. You can weigh that if you want to. You might die, but you can weigh that if you want to. Like we've seen massive guys cut weight, like Gleison Tibau, who fights at the UFC. He cuts what I am right now in a night. Like that's crazy. That's crazy. He's the same weight. He fights the same weight as me. So like if you can mentally man up to the challenge, you can make any weight you want. Obviously, whether you can perform at that weight is a different story. Like that's the
catch-20.
That's the catch-20. And I've been fighting at 70 kilograms my whole life, so I know I can make that weight.
So, for a guy like yourself who seems to manage a weight cut like that with ease, what do you think about? Obviously, we again, like we had Igor Cabeza missing weight, and then the big one with Khabib missing weight. What is your opinion? More weight classes, or just stop making excuses about missing weight?
Man, I love the idea of more weight classes. Like for me, I'm a really big lightweight,
Sure.
but I'd be an average welterweight. I'm not as big as like a guy like Drickus. Like he's a big dude.
Yeah, he's massive.
So for me to fight him, I'd have to like get way bigger to bulk up to be able to even compete at that weight. Or like Henry Felipe, like those are big guys. Whereas a fight at like 74, 75 kilograms, or like 73 and a half or whatever, that would be perfect for me because I wouldn't have to kill myself. This is the last 3 kilos is what kills you. Kills me to make lightweight. But if I had to get to 73, I think that would be like my optimum weight class. I mean, I've people say to me, "Oh, why don't you go to featherweight?" I'm like, what? What? I'll never make featherweights. Even like I think the last time I fought at that weight, I was like 17 or something. I'll never make featherweight.
The thing is, I don't think people realize how much you walk around.
Yeah, that's it. Like I mean,
it's like it's only one more weight class. Like whoa.
No. 4 kilos is a hell of a thing. I mean, like when I'm off, like when I got injured and I couldn't train. I was in a boot for 6 weeks. I couldn't do shit. Like I was like 90 kilograms. Like I was big because all I could do was go to the gym and lift weights, like pump iron. You know, it's like that's all I could do. And obviously you don't want to diet when you can't even train. So like you just eat whatever you want. So like I have the ability to get really big if I wanted to, but yeah, as soon as I start training, my weight sort of stays around 82, 83.
Okay, so that in there, there's another little interesting question. So obviously with with Martin now looking to make a surge at lightweight, let's play out the scenario that or I suppose it doesn't really matter which way you look at it. Let's say you win the title and defend it a couple of times and Martin becomes a contender. What have you guys thought about that? What happens?
I think it's a pretty easy thing to solve because we know that we're not going to fight each other. We're teammates, and I wouldn't want to fight Martin, and I'm sure he wouldn't want to fight me because we train together every day. We're good friends. I think it's the same as when Boyd and DeMott were at the same weight once upon a time. Boyd was always a contender for the featherweight title. DeMott dropped to bantamweight, and then Boyd became the champion. I think it's the same thing. If I fight and I win, and I'm champion for however long, I'm sure he'll just have to wait his turn. You know, wait in line. It's one of those things, and the fortunate thing for us is that we do have the ability to go and fight anywhere else in the world. So if he wants to be a champion at lightweight in another organization, he's got an opportunity as well as I do. So like if I defend it twice here and I want to go fight overseas and go for another strap,
is a opportunity in the UFC in your mind full time?
100%. I mean, like my manager has had chats with the UFC. I mean, it's on the horizon. Just a couple more wins, a title, and beating a guy like Dave Mazany, who's very well known in the community.
Sure.
That's definitely something that people will look at. I think the biggest thing for most fighters to realize is that if you fight you can be 20-0. If you fight 20-0 in one organization, no one really looks at you because you don't have any like diversity. You basically just, it's like me going to go fight at like some backyard thing, fighting bums, beating the shit out of them, and I'm 20-0. But that doesn't really mean that you're a world beater.
Sure.
And we've seen that a lot, like guys come into the UFC or wherever with these great records and they just get annihilated. They just get eaten.
Yeah, because you don't know the opponents.
Yeah, exactly.
I've said there's a lot of people like, oh, this guy is fighting, he's 8-0. I'm like, yeah, dude, he's fighting
Against who?
jungle mix somewhere.
That's it.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's you got to look a little bit deeper than
It's
that.
even like in Asia, there's a lot of places to fight. But the level of fighters that you get sometimes are quite shocking.
Sure.
Like in Thailand, for instance, I was offered like a fight at one of the things, and it was against like some Thai fighter, never fought an MMA fight before, and I watched him one of his training videos, and it was completely like Thai style, tapping the one leg, and I was like, I will absolutely eat this guy. And like then that goes on your record, and like a lot of guys, they do that. They have like 10 fights at these organizations, and they're like, why would the UFC sign me? And they're like, because you've beaten a bunch of like taxi drivers. Like no one cares.
Sure. So obviously Dave Mazany is the next obstacle, and it's it's such an interesting fight. You were obviously there when he fought Leon again.
Mm-hmm.
There was, he had called you out and you guys kind of faced off. Off the bat there was a couple of things to take. Like he's very up for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think he put on a very good display against Leon the second time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Leon should have taken that fight. He obviously got an offer or whatever it was, because I think Dave had his number. He knew what to expect and he knew what to do. And one of the big things I picked up personally, it's just my opinion, was Dave's got a very good wrestling ability, and his wrestling base seems extremely strong.
Mm-hmm.
So have you factored those sort of things in?
Yeah, obviously we know exactly where his strengths lie. In terms of like his wrestling ability, it's very limited to MMA. Like it's he's got good wrestling for MMA, but in terms of being like a great wrestler, there's guys that I train with that'll absolutely bury him in terms of wrestling. Sure. Like if you look at a guy like even Iga Cabeza, the level of wrestling there compared to a guy like Dave, it's years apart. Even like my teammate and flyweight champion JP Bass, we train together. That guy, if you wrestle with him, like I'm a big guy, and when I wrestle with him, it feels like I'm wrestling a monster. Sure. Like, so give credit where credit's due. Dave is a very good grappler, and I think his jiu-jitsu game is a little bit underrated, because if you watch the way that he controls the fight from top, it's not wrestling. It's very much jiu-jitsu driven, and I know that he's been doing jiu-jitsu for a long time. And I think that's where he capitalized on Leon in the second fight. Yeah, is that his control, and Leon's always had problems with grapplers, high-level grapplers. With Costa destroyed him. With Dave out grappled him. Whenever he fights really good grapplers that come from a grappling base, he finds it hard. Sure. Me, all the guys I fight try and take me down. Like, I've only had 3 guys that have stood with me, and that was Leon, Wade, and Boyd. Like, there's the only guys, and even Wade took me down. Like, it's very rare that like you get a guy that comes and stands. So I'm used to guys trying to take me down, and that's the kind of fight that I always expect with anyone I fight. Doesn't matter where they come from, what their base is. I expect them to take me down, because no one wants to get hit. No one wants to get hit.
Yeah, everyone's eat head kicks.
Yeah, exactly. No one wants to get kicked.
But this is the funniest thing, is I don't even know how many people realize is that you're a brown belt now.
Yeah.
In jiu-jitsu. I mean,
yeah, I'm third degree brown belt.
That takes a bit of time and a bit of doing. You know what I mean? So it's everyone still talks about the Muay Thai, Madge, but there's so much more to it. And you say like you're training with guys like JP and Iga, that's really changes things. And with the Dave Mazany fight, because he's a big lightweight, you know what I mean, and he comes from a big gym, and you come from a big gym, there's so many factors that you know, I don't think people have quite realized how big this fight is. And you say things like the UFC, and that's got to be in the back of your mind. You know, what I mean? You know, there's a hurdle in front of you that's, you know, never mind the title. There's a little bit more behind the story as well. You know, you want to get that win, you want to secure that title, you want to defend that title, and see what happens.
100%. I think the cool thing with a fighter like Dave is that he's a gamer, so he comes and he fights, like, and that's awesome, because that's exactly what I want. I don't want someone that's going to just try and win, just try and win a fight. He's going to come and he's going to fight me, and for my style and for his style, that's great. Like, and for the fans,
absolutely,
that's like the best thing anyone could ask for, like two guys that are coming there to fight.
Yeah, that's also one thing about Dave, man. Like, you know, the funny thing with Dave is, like, the first time I saw him fight, you're like, okay, cool, he's obviously pretty good, and then, like, you know, the whole claw and all this other crap that's going on, you're like, geez, dude, what is this thing doing? You know what I mean? So you kind of like, you forget that he's actually a pretty good fighter.
Yeah.
And then I was in Cape Town when he fought Leon again, and I was just like, okay, this boy means business.
No, he
know
can
what I mean?
fight,
He's
yeah,
not
for sure.
playing games, you know.
For sure.
So it's quite interesting. I think, I don't even know if he realizes, but like, even for me, like, as a fan, that whole claw paint train stuff is like throwing me off a little bit, you know, like this looks at bum, what is he saying?
I think it's cool, because like he really brings a different element to the sport. Like he brings a lot of attention to MMA, and especially to the EFC, and for all the guys that fight here, because of all his antics. Like, everyone's like, who's this weird guy wearing the red undies on the stage? Like, you know, like,
and his moon bag.
Who's the guy with the fanny pack and the, like, you know, the lamb chop? Like, you know, like, and I think it's cool, and I think he's a really cool guy. I have a lot of respect for him. He's a journeyman. Like, he's fought a lot, and he's fought a lot of different organizations. He's fought a lot of tough guys, and I'm excited. Like, I think, like I said before with me and Boyd, he's going to bring out the best in me, and I'm going to bring out the best in him. And I think that's what's going to be exciting about the fight.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, geez, it's such an exciting fight, you know, because like I've thought about it a lot, and I've like, and that's why I asked about the UFC as well, because it's like a lot of those things you start to think about those things.
Yeah.
You know? Like you look at your accolades from Thailand all the way to now, you know, there's a long list of achievements that you've already got, you know what I mean? You have had the title, and there's a whole like resurgence happening, which is so cool to see. And that's why I say that the Don Madge that lost to Leon Maynard is of the past.
Yeah, 100%.
A very different person, a very different fighter, and it's been a lot of change. So it's exciting, you know what I mean? And I think, honestly, in the EFC lightweight division, Dave Mazany is definitely the champion, but you are at the moment the biggest threat to him, you know what I mean? And I think he knows that.
I think so too.
So he's going to prepare properly. Obviously, he comes from a big team, and it's
and that's exactly why I'm so excited for the fight, because I know that he's going to come in there and he's going to be the best Dave Mazany that I can face. And I would hate to go in there and he's at like 50% and I beat him, and I'm like, I know he could have been better. You know? And I think because of, we were supposed to fight in November, the fight got cancelled. Obviously, I was injured, and now it's been delayed till April. That's also been playing on his mind. He's like, okay, now I've got extra time to prepare. I've got extra time to do this. I've got extra time. I've watched more tape. I can do that, which is awesome, because I know he's going to step in there and he's going to know everything about me. He's going to, well, everything he thinks he knows about me, and he's going to come and fight. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with him. I've seen every single one of his fights, especially the ones in the UFC, his most recent ones, because before the UFC, he was on quite a bad losing streak. And based on his record, whenever he steps up to another gamer, he loses. He doesn't do well. And I think because guys can't match his intensity. He's a very intense guy. I'm a very intense guy when I fight. We can both flip that switch, and I think if I match him on that intensity, I will break him and I will win. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, man. So it's if anybody's quite undecided whether they should watch that fight, I'll tell you fucking right now.
Yeah,
you want to watch that?
Get on the Magic Man team.
That's it. Man. Get on the winning side, eh? So, how is your camp base now? You obviously still spending time between Cape Town and here. How is it all working out?
So obviously I'm from Cape Town, so my whole life is in Cape Town, and I have a business in Cape Town. So when I'm not preparing for a fight, I'm usually in Cape Town. which isn't ideal because obviously I'd love to be here all the time with the guys training, evolving all the time, which I think is something that's going to happen in the future, especially after this fight. If I win the title, bigger things, better things, I'm going to have to obviously be evolving constantly all the time. But obviously it's difficult, I have my girlfriend who lives in Cape Town. I got my mom, my brother, my whole family, all my friends. It's tough, but this is the thing that like guys don't understand about the sport, is that if you're not all in, then you're all out. It's just you can't have one foot in, one foot out. Like you're in or you're not. So all these guys that say like, oh, I can't make it there, I can't travel, it's too far, it's that. Fuck that. It's not too far. I'm here right now, Sure. I'm here for 6 months out of the year, and it's just to get better, just for my career. The only reason I would even be in Cape Town is based on those factors. Like I have a business, etc., etc. But even so, like being able to move here, I can still run my business from here. I can still do everything from here. So I can just I'm just trying to tie up all the strings, and then in the future it's definitely something I'm going to be based here 100%.
Sure. And do you, just a little interesting one, like the EFC that just passed on the weekend, there seemed to be a lot of guys that were struggling with altitude. Again, in my opinion, like I spoke to one or two of the guys and they admitted, they're like, look, we underestimated it. Do you think spending a lot of time training up here is going to help you go into Cape Town?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of research on that specific topic, and basically like the whole idea of you must sleep at altitude, train at sea level, whatever. But I've always been a pretty fit guy. I never really get tired in fights, and I think that's just because I think it's first genetic maybe, and also because I train as hard as I possibly can. But definitely, like, it's a huge advantage being up in Joburg, going to go fight in Cape Town. It's a huge advantage. I can feel it because obviously I'm there a week before the fight, and I do training and I cut my weight or whatever, and I can definitely feel the difference in the air.
Sure.
I've adapted pretty well to the altitude here in Joburg. It usually takes me like 2 or 3 days just to get into it. But yeah, like it's a huge advantage. And guys that come from overseas, especially that come fight in Joburg, that don't take in the consideration of the altitude. You could see like the guy Martin fought.
Yeah, Christian Holly.
He was done. And I could see it. Like I saw him when he was on Martin's back. I was like, this dude's going to be fucked after this round.
It's funny you say that because when he went live on Facebook, obviously he was training in the EFC German, whatever. Like I don't ever really get involved in those things, but I was like quite interested to know, because this altitude thing is something that's been like working on my mind lately. I actually messaged Richie the other day. I was like, why does nobody, or why don't any fighters ever go train like in Dahlstrom? It's 2.5 hours drive, and it's the highest point in the country. Nobody's training there. And he was like, he's never really thought about it. I was like, okay. So I've been thinking about this shit a lot lately, and when he went to live, I was like, I'm actually gonna ask this like on the feed. I was like, have you considered the altitude? And he was like, no, where he stays, there's a point where they're 3,000 meters above sea level, so he's not worried about altitude. And then the press conference, he's like, the altitude got But I was like, but dude, you just said you were training at altitude.
Yeah, man. That's the thing. Happened, man. That's the thing with fighters. Like, and I think that's the thing with more experienced and better fighters, is that they're honest.
Sure.
They'll say like, look, I never really thought about the altitude.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't think about it. Or they'll say, look, I'm afraid of the altitude. And I think that's a testament to someone's character as a man. Sure. And I think that sort of character is what makes good fighters. Perfect example is a guy like GSP. If he says something, it's usually because he's thought about it, and he's coming from an honest place. He's not going to lie and have bravado and be like, oh no, fuck the altitude, man. I'm Wim Hof. I don't need a fucking like.
I've been in the ice for 4 days.
Yeah. I train in the mountains. Like, no, like it's a real thing. It's a real factor. It's something that I think about when I've come here to fight. I always try and come as close to the fight as possible, because there's a small window where altitude doesn't affect you. So they say it's like 48 hours or anything after 48 hours. I can't remember the exact thing, but like I said, I've done a lot of research on it. But guys that come like a week before and they don't take the altitude into consideration, and then if they see on the Saturday they fight, and the next Saturday they're going to feel the altitude 100%.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's, you know, like it's nice to hear that, like, you do your own research, so you know for yourself, you know what I mean. And I think a lot of guys don't do these things, you know what I mean. They're not like, if you sit and like listen to Rory Diesel, for example, like he'll just run off some stuff.
He's the mad scientist, that guy.
Your jaw's just hanging, and you're like, hang on, we're just gonna have to break that down. But you know what I mean. But Rory's a great example because he's researched this stuff, and you know what I mean. And I'm sure at FFM he's kind of like passed it on. So even like, okay, let me go and research myself.
100%.
And a lot of these guys come up and they're like, you know, you're a professional fighter now, dude. You need to consider all of these things.
Exactly.
You've got to consider all of these things to the detail, scientific detail of what's going on.
The thing that baffles my mind the most is that there's athletes out there that don't have a nutritionist.
Yeah.
They don't have someone that's there just to make sure that their body has the right fuel. Like, that to me blows my fucking mind. Like, because what are you doing? Like, there's guys that I've seen it with my own eyes. They'll make weight and they'll go to KFC and they'll go eat, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what are you guys doing? You have no idea what you're putting in your body right now.
Yeah, there was an example I asked Rory about, Baldwin, who had missed weight so many times, and the last time, I think it was the JP's fight, as he made weight, the Oaks were sitting with like a 2-liter Sparbury or something.
Oh my god!
I was like, surely that's not a great idea.
No, that's definitely not.
What I mean?
Especially since you haven't had that in like your whole camp.
Let's just get a funnel with some syrup, right?
Yeah.
You know, and just pour it down his throat. You know, so there is obviously South African MMA is obviously, like, in my mind, it's reaching that massive point where it's going to boil over into the masses, and I think the whole SABC structure is kind of going to do that. But at the same time, there's still too much of that shit going on. You know what I mean? Like, guys need to either like adapt and admit to themselves that they're either not cut from that cloth, or they need to become. And I think a good example was like Gordon. Like, we spoke before, like Gordon, all props to him, man. The dude's crazy and he just goes for it, you know. But I think he's also made the realization in his head that this is a profession and I need to be professional now. Like, he also seemed very different. Like, I'd spoken to him a bit in the build-up, and he was very focused, and his training was, he said he had stepped up. He's never trained like that in his life, and he's kind of made a decision in his mind that, you know, yes, he's still going to work his 9-to-5 job, but he's going to take this maybe a lot more serious than he was before. And I think we just need a little bit more of that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said now about research. Like, if you're not interested in your profession, then you're in the wrong profession. Like, the only thing I ever read is about like nutrition or performance or mental training, or that's, like I said before, I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, and what was it about? It was about MMA. Like, you know, like I'm just doing that stuff because there's never too much information.
No, 100%.
And the more you know about what you do, the better. You can obviously filter the things out. It's like learning new skills. People that don't like try and train, they're like, oh, Taekwondo doesn't work in fucking MMA. Yeah, okay, tell that to Yael Rodriguez or whatever the fuck his name is. Tell that to that dude.
Yeah.
You know?
Tell him to restrict himself to 10 spinning back.
Yeah, like, come on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and people that have that like closed off mindset, I think that's, or where they say, oh, I know how to cut weight, I know how to do it, you just got to eat less than you put out. And it's like, okay, do that for a week, see how you feel.
Good luck. Good luck with that. And that's a crazy thing, because everyone forgets that you guys are still training 5 times a day through all this shit, man.
If you try and eat the way a bodybuilder eats, I swear to God, you will crash. You will crash so hard.
Just on the, do you use a mental coach at all?
I have used mental coaches before. I'm a pretty mentally strong guy, and I'm very honest about if I'm feeling, unconfident, or, like I said before, I was completely unconfident going into our third fight with Leon. I never said it to any of my coaches, but I knew it to myself, and I'm honest with myself, and I said, look, I'm going in here, but I'm going to fight him because I am a fighter, and I'll fight him to the best of my capabilities. And I feel the biggest thing for me personally is that if I'm confident in my training and I'm confident in my preparation, then my mental aspect is right there. I don't need anything more, because I've spoken to quite a few guys, and they always do this thing where they draw on a chalkboard or whatever, and they'll say, okay, well, what are your doubts? What are your fears, etc., etc. So they'll write them all down, and then they'll say, okay, well, what are the answers to these fears? So you're afraid of getting tired, but are you doing conditioning? Yes, I'm doing conditioning 3 times a week. Or do you feel tired when you do conditioning? A little bit, but not dead. Okay, so fear there, stupid. So I think about that all the time. So whenever I'm in training and I'm pushing myself to my absolute limits and I feel like I'm absolutely exhausted, I'll be like, okay, you're exhausted, but you went around with the Marpena, who's pound for pound best fighter on the continent. You went around with Boyd Allen, who's possibly pound for pound best fighter on the continent. Yeah, sure. Like, you went with absolute savages now. If you're not tired, you're a robot. You know what I mean? Sure. Like, so in those sort of things, you start to learn how to deal with your own mind. And the problem is your mind is like, it's a trap. Like, yeah, and I've felt it, and I've seen lots of guys fall into that trap too. Sure. And I think if you aren't sure of how to deal with your own processes, then a mental coach is definitely something that.
I think especially in fighting, because there's such a massive part of what you're about to do is based on the confidence you have in your own ability. And it's like you say, and that's such an interesting point. It's not just the confidence in what you're about to do, it's in your preparation. Yeah. You know, did you do the right things? Did you train the right ways? Did you train with the right people? Did you fuel your body correctly? Did you recover correctly?
100%.
And if you can tick all of those boxes,
is my weight cut okay?
Yeah, 100%.
Did I cut too much weight?
Yeah. So there's so many factors, and there's so many opportunities for your mind to veer off and start to tell you, look, you've missed,
it always does
something here. You know what I mean? And let's bring it back. You know, that's why I like to hear about the mental side, because it's, for the casual fan, let's say, it's something that's never really looked on. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of, like, MMA is such a weird sport in that sense. Is like, you know, let's say we watch a game of rugby. Like, there can be 20 oaks on a couch. They can all tell you what's happening because they've played rugby, or they've you know, that they've been in this scenario. They've trained. You know, like, these guys train hard. And like, I hear you, bro, but let's move over this side, and you can put the same 20 guys, and 10 guys will know exactly what the fuck is going on, and know the sacrifices and how much has really been put in, and 10 guys will think they know. You know what I mean? That's the weird thing with combat sports, let's say. You know what I mean?
100%. Like, it's, I always use this example when people ask me about fighting, and I think it's a pretty good one. Like, if me and you are stood right here, and you say something, and I'm my response to adrenaline is fight, not flight. And you say something that offends me, I won't even think twice, I'll fight you right here. But if you say something to me and you say, well, we can't fight right now, but in 10 weeks, me and you can square off and beat the shit out of each other. For 10 weeks, that's in my mind. And I'm thinking, I got to fight this guy. Oh, he's quite big. I don't know where he's from. Maybe he's quite fucking rough. Like, I don't know.
Sure.
And that's where guys fall. Yeah. That's the problem with, like, the casual MMA fan, is they're like, oh, he should have just done that, man. He fucking... Come on.
He should have just taken his back and choked him.
Why didn't he do more cardio for the fight? Like, because he's thinking about the guy's black belt Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Like, he's been focusing on that more than his cardio, you know, like. Yeah,
it's one of those, it's such a strange thing, because I can't say, I love the sport, and I train, so I don't have an inclination of what you guys are going through, but I'm actively always trying to understand, you know what I mean, like, and try and see, like, guys are like, oh, this is so unprofessional, he missed weight, and I'm always like, but you cannot say that, because there's so many factors to consider, and there's so many things to consider, you know what I mean, like, things happen. This is a brutal process, you know what I mean? It is. And you don't see it anywhere else, you know. Where else do you see people doing this? Like, you won't find it anywhere else, you know.
No, like, it's where the weight cuts are, man. I wish we didn't have to cut weight. I wish we didn't have to cut weight. That's always a stress for most fighters, and I think that's why a lot of guys miss weight, because your body's natural reaction to stress is to not let you diminish. You know?
Sure.
So the more you stress about the weight cut, the less you're going to lose. It's just the way it is.
In saying that, though, don't you think that a weight cut makes you mentally so much more fucking tough? You're like, well, you know, I've survived that, the fight's going to be fucking easy.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Well, for some guys. I think it works the other way around for other guys. I think some guys, like, they cut a lot of weight and they struggle. They go into the fight saying, fuck, I cut so much weight. Am I going to get tired?
Sure.
Am I going to get tired? Is this guy going to hit me? Is my chin going to be a bit like suspect? So it can, for me personally, I'm like, this motherfucker made me cut so much weight. I'm going to beat his ass. Like, I'm going to beat his head in. Like, that's just the way I think.
Sure. And that's, I don't know, like a weight cut seems so unnecessary, but it seems such an integral part of fighting now as well. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, you see guys that stand up on the scale and you're just like, whoa, dude, the circuit's not in good shape. You know? But I think it's all part of the process, and I think like as we've evolved, we've kind of just accepted this as one of those things that happens.
Yeah, man.
You know, maybe in the future something will change, but
it should, in my opinion. Like the boxing community's got it right. Yeah. Like they weigh you a month before, they weigh you the night before, and then they weigh you on fight day, so they can see exactly how much you're cutting.
Sure.
And if you're cutting, I think it's something like if you're more than 5 kilograms or something over your weight limits on fight nights, you can't fight.
Sure.
Because then they know you've cut too much weight. It's something like that. I can't remember the exact thing. But I think something like that in MMA might help, because I know that there's guys that cut like 8 kilos in a day.
Yeah, jeez.
And it's
brutal.
Like it just shortens your career as well. You know, like you cutting that much weight it's not good. It's not good for your body. And I know it's because like that's why I got the help of a guy like Rory, because I know that I can cut weight by myself. I've done a lot of research. I've studied a lot of stuff. I can do it on my own, but whether I'm doing it properly, whether I'm rehydrating properly, that's
a whole nother
that I don't know. Yeah.
Sure. Well, cool, Don.
Hey,
thanks so much. It's a great bit of insight you've given us, and we wish you all the best with the rest of your camp, man. I know it's the hard yards are about to begin, really. And again, thank you very much for making some time for us. We really appreciate it, bro, and all the best for your fight.
Thank you very much.
We'll be there quietly shouting for you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Sure, man. Ciao.